So you mentioned that like in South Africa, for instance, nutritious food is about 65% more expensive than
It can be. I
it
mean, it's
can be. Yeah, it can be in most instances.
more expensive, but
Yeah,
yeah.
most of the time. Do you think that maybe is that what it is that healthy, nutritious food and safe food has to be expensive or organic? What what do you have to say to that? Does it have to be organic? Does it have to be expensive for it to be healthy, nutritious, and sustainable?
So to address the point of organics, I think organic farming is simply it's a recipe, and it's a recipe that was developed in Europe. So when it first came to South Africa, it even included requirements like hedgerows, that the fields needed to have hedgerows, which is such an English concept. Nobody in South Africa knows what a hedgerow is. And it didn't take into account water use, which obviously in South Africa, if you're going to farm well, that would be step number one. It didn't take into account invasive alien plants, and that's a huge challenge for us in our production landscapes. So they were the sort of whole system thinking was originally absent from organic farming in South Africa. And it didn't take into account how smallholder farmers, how poor farmers could be involved in the process, could access certification. Organic certification, you were paying for it in euros. It essentially worked as an obstacle to good farming rather than an incentive for good farming. So over the years, there's been various efforts to work with smallholders who are anyway organic farmers, many of them, simply because they can't afford the inputs, to work with them to get a sort of community level certification, to get skills and capabilities in order to support them in their farming processes. And I think that's got real potential, that approach that's at a broad community level and focusing on farmers at a small scale who are anyway farming this way. But it solves problems, I think, within that immediate area for good, nutritious food. It's not necessarily a means of growing those farmers to a point where they're commercially viable. And I think it's not something that we would promote as you say, WWF puts out a call for organic food. I don't think we would ever do that in South Africa. We really would start with people being able to eat whole foods, vegetables, fruits, and being able to afford those. And whether those are farmed conventionally, organically, perhaps is less important than that they're farmed well, I think you can also have quite poor environmental practices on an organic farm. What there is some evidence for is how healthy the soil is and how high the nutrient levels are in that plant. And I think the farming practices that create that healthy soil can be achieved through a number of means.
Okay, that's really good to know. And I think so basically what you're saying, really it's a contextual thing. So different geographies, it'll work differently. So in some parts of the world, organic might be best, but in some others, not so much because of really complex, economic, political, social structures that might not really allow it to be.